I am just thrilled to introduce Meredith Franks to present to us what does the customer story of the future look like.
All right. Thanks, guys. So welcome, everyone. I'm Meredith Franks. I'm a consultant now in the customer marketing space. And I'm really excited to bring everybody together to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's what does the customer story of the future look like? And I think when we started this discussion with Evan and Genie before pandemic, I think we had one very clear kind of longer range view. And I think as the pandemic evolved, everybody had to move really quickly. And I think it pulled a lot of things forward that would have been a little bit further out. So I think we've got a lot of great lessons learned from both Genie and Evan to share with their experiences in evolving the customer story through these challenging times. So I'm really excited to have both of them here. So let me introduce them. So we have Evan Jacobs. He has spent nearly a decade in B2B marketing, focused on customer marketing and customer advocacy at some of the world's best brands. He recently joined Catchpoint as Director of Customer Marketing. And prior to that, Evan led the Global Advocacy Program at Atomization and led the Customer Marketing and Advocacy team at Rapid7. He's also one of the co-founders of Camp Boston and is an advisory board member for Slap 5. I'm also really excited to introduce Genie Talbot. She is Director of Customer Marketing at CloudBees, where she leads their global advocacy, reference, and advisory board efforts. With more than 20 years of experience in technology marketing, PR, and communications, Genie has worked at Fortune 500 companies and startups. Of note, she scaled the customer marketing function at Lexmark and led PR efforts at Intel. So lots of great stories, I'm sure, for them to share today. And I want to make sure that we get to as many questions at the end as we can. So type in questions as we go, and we'll field as many questions as we can get to in our time today. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Evan to kick things off.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much, Meredith, and good to talk to everyone here today. A lot of familiar faces I saw popping on, so great to talk to everyone here and collaborate again with you all. So I don't probably need to recap the recap that Meredith provided, but just since a lot of things tend to happen quickly, since I've seen probably most of you in person, I've joined a new company, Catchpoint, as Meredith mentioned, which is a leader in the digital experience marketing space. But it's a fast-growing company, and I'm so excited to be trying out a lot of the things that I got to learn on previous roles. So I'm just thrilled to be here. So with that, I'm happy to just hop right in. So one of the things that I wanted to start us out today was talking about trends that either were happening or were starting to happen. And as Meredith mentioned, we got some accelerant happening there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what things that I've seen, which might jive with what you all are seeing or might be different. So love to see where those overlaps, those commonalities are, or where things are a bit different. So this slide around content atomization, which I think probably resonates with folks here, because I think it's been touched on in some of the previous sessions. But when it comes to customer stories, I've seen that be more true now than ever before. Well, it used to just be, hey, like I've got the URL up and there's a PDF somewhere, and it's in my drawer or whatever, right? That was sort of good enough. I mean, sort of, not really, but I think the idea today is we have to go as customer marketers. I've seen the need to sort of go the other way, that we really have to sort of put on our content marketer hat, or even our global campaigns hat, and make sure that the content that we are helping shepherd and create and nurture, make sure it gets to all the right teams, whether that's demand, whether that's brand, whether that's your web team, whether it's your PR team, and then also making it easier for them to sort of use it by giving them lots of different flavors of it. If you know they like quotes, then give them a pull quote. If you know they need something that's really short, a snippet, get that to them. So to make their job a bit easier and make sure that the content that you have really lives on in all the possible ways. So that's a trend I've seen happening, and my guess is that'll continue to happen. So another one is around, we're sort of all very versed and familiar with case studies, video testimonials. And I was always very interested in having our customers sort of be in a media spokesperson or a media reference role for us, talking to the press, trade publications. But previously it didn't happen that often, even though we might have put the opportunity out there or sought some hand raisers from customers, but it didn't happen that much. And just recently, actually, post or part of this, post-March timeframe, I've actually seen it happening a lot where we have opportunities that emerge at Catchpoint. We have our customers, and we're able to match up the right customer with the right media opportunity, the right timing, and just sort of get them plugged in. And it's been a great fit. It's happened with a number of our customers, and the beauty about it has been mutual value. It's helped build their personal brand, build our brand, help our media partners out there. So it's been a really nice fit, and I hope that continues to happen, and I bet it probably will. And last one here, this was sort of a bit of a head scratcher going in as a customer marketer and customer advocacy folks, like, ooh, there's a pandemic, like everyone's at home, like things are like rough, like who knows what's going to be with business. Maybe we should just sort of like stand down, and maybe we should just sort of like stop reaching out to customers and sort of just like lay off on them. And what I've seen, and in my experience, is that actually it is actually the time to lean into advocacy. It was the time to lean in, the time to engage more with our customers and present opportunities to them, because actually they have the same need that we do to make sure that they are still relevant, that they are still out there, that they are still engaging with their key vendors, with their key partners. And I think I found that customers, though they're working from home and though they might have other constraints on them that they didn't have 8 months ago, they've actually been more available, more responsive, more eager to try things that are creative, get outside of their own comfort zone, which has been sometimes hard to find silver linings. But I would say I've seen that as a silver lining, that our customers are, especially because we want to be that key, that number one, not a vendor, right? We want to be that partner for them. And I think those are the ones you can certainly tap into, where you've established that relationship, and it's just a time to tap into that. So, however, right, so that, yes, there's that interest, and yes, there's that creativity. But what I have seen is that we're, as customer marketers and customer advocate folks, we're familiar with layers and red tape and some hoops we got to jump through. But I've seen more of that, actually. I've seen that, we might expect our customer has to reach out and get some approval from their boss, and maybe sometimes VP. But I think that there's more hoops than ever. I found a lot of times these days, before I can even go anywhere, I actually have to have a call with our customers marketing team. And maybe that happened in the past, but I never actually had to jump on a call, or maybe never the need didn't arise. So have that prep call with the marketer, get them on board. Then the customer's VP has to get on board. Then you have PR and legal. I've even seen several times the CEO actually personally needing to sign off on that customer story. And I'm not talking a 2-man or 2-woman shop. These are some actually larger organizations. So I think just with so much going on in the world, companies really want to control their brand and make sure that it's used in the right way, and that they're portrayed the right way, which we totally want to support, and we want them to feel this is their story as much as it is ours. So happy to support them there. Just sort of a bit of a trend that I've been seeing. And so this is one that's sort of in the 8, 9, 10 years been doing this, like it's sort of everyone predicting, next year there's going to be no more case studies and they're going to be done. And I actually have not found that at all. I think the death of written case studies greatly exaggerated. And I think actually, having talked to sales teams and talked to SDRs, BDRs, they're actually finding maybe more value than ever in a written story. Maybe because people don't have a commute, or maybe because they're willing to spend a couple of minutes. I'm not exactly sure why, but I just think the format tends to resonate, especially when done well. And I think that's what we're talking about. So I think those are here to stay. Maybe some people are crying over that, or maybe some people are thrilled. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure, but I do still think they're firmly here with us when done with quality. You got to asterisk that. And so I think they'll be here now and for the long haul. However, right, I think that okay, so someone's talking about the format of case studies, and I think I'm less wedded to it being a PDF or a landing page or with cool pictures popping up. I think there's different strokes for different folks. I think you're going to be as creative as you like, but I think what's going to come down to is what I have here on the slide, right? You want to make it consumable, you want to make it prettier, you want to make it easier to digest, but it's going to come down to that really strong content, right? Like, people never wanted fluff, but I think they want that even less than before, right? They really are going to look for what matters. Like they're going to look for, is there something here? Or is it just those pretty pictures? Is it just those nice graphics? So I think there is the appetite for reading, for consuming content. And I just, I've seen that there's no room, both on the internal teams, no sales teams want to use that fluffy content, and folks out there, prospects, customers, they don't want to consume that. Their time is valuable, and you want to respect that. So you want to meet them where they are and get them those stories hard hitting, really, really down to those use cases, really where they're operating. So, and this is sort of a build on that, maybe to your question, Howard. I've actually seen that there used to be the traditional way was, you couldn't exceed 800 or 900 words in a case study, and you couldn't have longer than 90 seconds on a video. And I found that people are willing to spend just a couple more minutes with your content. They're willing to give it a bit of a chance more than they might have traditionally. But that doesn't mean you can, hit them over the head with the 12-page, white paper-esque case study. You have to, keep it to what's reasonable. But I've seen, 1,200 words has been okay, as long as you've got the right content. If it's meaty, if it's juicy content, I think people are going to stick around. That's been my experience. But again, as said above, right? Don't expect that they'll only want that sort of foundational piece. They're going to want that shorter one, and serve it up to them as well, because some people don't have that amount of time. So moving on, right? So those are sort of some trends, and I want to talk about a couple of new rules, and I asterisk everything here. This is my experience or having worked with some folks out there, but you might find vastly different stuff, and I'd love to hear about that, because that's what this is all about, sharing and learning. So moving on to that. So I think one thing I've seen as a reframe is the ability for us to, yes, we always want to talk to an exec. I think that's always going to be nice. Your boss or your CMO probably going to say, can't you get their CIO on, or their CISO, and I think we can. But I've also found that's nice to have. But I think really what I'm seeing is prospects and customers want to hear from folks like them. They're not, if you're a hands-on keyboard person, you're most likely not the CIO, especially in some of these mid-sized and enterprise companies. You're going to be who you are. You want to talk to or see or meet folks that are just like you, that are using the product on a regular basis. And that used to sort of be like a ding. I was like, ooh, you only got the end user. Like you didn't quite really hit the nail on the head. And I've actually seen a bit of a flip for that. Like, make it authentic, talk to the end user, get their perspective in there. And I think that's likely to stay as well, because I think it goes to authenticity, as we were talking about earlier. And moving on, right? So the old way, now I want to talk about video storytelling, video testimonials. And I think I would say the old way, which was all of 8 months ago, right, is that you're going to go on site, you're going to go to your customer's really cool office, it's going to be open floor plan, you're going to have everything there, you're going to bring your 4 or 5 person camera crew, you're going to have a lighting person, you're going to have a director, you're going to have a gaffer, right? You're going to have a whole crew with you, and you're going to do like drone shots of the building, you're going to get them entering the door and waving to the reception person. And that sort of, it feels so nostalgic that was like only 8 months ago that we were doing that. And I think all of us, it's a little hard to let that go, because we've all cut our teeth like that, right? And I think it's how we grew up, it's what we're used to. And also it looks pretty, right? It looks like, it's really hard to mimic, like having like a red gear lens and camera set that costs over $1 million. Like, it's really hard to replicate that lushness, that depth of shot that you're going to get with that kind of crew. But I think the way the world has gone, that's just become an impossibility for the last 8 months, and you're not going to get to do that for some period of time. So I think we had to sort of pivot out of necessity, and out of maybe some of us wanted to try this anyway. So I think what's happening is that we're going to condense that whole crew that we just talked about there down to a light gear kit, sometimes as light as just like an iPad, right? It's something that can fit in a FedEx envelope and be shipped out to your customer. And I think it took this moment for that sort of to be okay, right? We could have done this a year ago, and maybe some folks out there on this call did it. I didn't get the chance to. I probably would have liked to, but I think it gave us that real kick to sort of try this. But like I said, it required stepping out of what worked for us, and everyone probably done this with quality and gotten kudos from your executive team and had it shown at your all hands and your sales kickoff and all that. And I think it takes it's a little scary to try something new, but I think we had to. So all of us did. So what that meant was moving to remote video shoots. So and what that means is that life necessarily didn't get easier, because when we were in the room, we could be there, we controlled all the variables and made sure the customer's preferred drink is there and that they had a little, you know, ice water near them, whatever it is. You can control all those variables and make sure the air conditioning was shut down, and put a sign on the door, don't come in. Right? So you had all that control over those variables. But when you're remote, when you're actually separated from your customer by hundreds or thousands of miles, you have to actually, I would argue, do more prep than you've done in the past, which means vetting the spot in your customer's house or room where you're going to want to shoot. Make sure the lighting looks good, but not only on the day you prep, but also on the actual day, because if you have a skylight, which has happened, the lighting changes. I think you need to check their upload speed on their internet where they're going to be, because that matters. Trust me, that matters. So don't be shy to ask them, like, here's a speed test link. Try that, please. Try it a few times. Let me know what it was. So you can actually get ahead of any concerns. And all this can be worked out. You just have to get ahead of it. You know, making sure they have a quiet space. If they have shared space with family or roommates, whatever, make sure they actually can get, you know, some quiet time there. Check the audio, check it again, make sure it's not bouncing around. There are things you can do. And even think about, what do you want to wear, right? When it was at a conference, you used to always record and the person had a blazer or a sport coat or polo. And sometimes people might have a different attire they might have thought to wear. So you want to get ahead of that. Additionally, since the work that I do, we actually send gear to customers, so they have quality gear to use. You want to make sure it gets there on time, and you actually want to help them get it set up, because again, they actually have to have they're wearing a second hat of their sort of your assistant crew, right? It's you're putting a little bit onto them, but with prep, talking them through it, almost getting people excited about it, you can get people to do that with you. And sort of the list is a bit endless, but I think these are some of the main things. And I would just say, anyone that's either done these or is contemplating them, just don't underestimate the prep. You can do it. You've already done this with the videos you shoot in person. Just think of it through the lens of your customer. These are your advocate. These are your rock stars. Make sure you've equipped them with what they need, get them excited, get them comfortable, and they're going to do just great. And so will all of you.
I'm going to jump in here, Evan, because during our prep call, Genie had kind of a funny prep story, or lack of prep story, to share on one of her video calls. So Genie, do you want to share your experience?
Sure. One of the things I love about this conference is that we're all learning from each other. And I'm humble enough to say that, gosh, I've learned a lot from Evan as we've prepared this. I have to admit that, you know, going from a full person crew on site, I swung the pendulum too far in the opposite direction, and found myself with, you know, a great story, but disastrous execution in terms of the environment and the look and feel. And so now I'm in a situation where I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. So Evan has really given me some great learnings on what we can do better. And so I'm like bowing to Evan like on this list.
And this is more art than science, right? So I think, and it's we're all figuring this out together, and each one will incrementally improve. I saw Alyssa asked a question in the chat just a minute ago around the gear kit. So I think she mentioned, Alyssa, that she's just having people use their own gear. I would say that's a possible route, and I think there are folks doing that, and I think, you know, power to you if you would try that. I think one caveat is you lose a little more control as well. Especially, you know, I tried international shoots, and there's different gear, and they have weird, maybe a strange Android OS that you're not familiar with, or a phone. It's really hard to QA a device that you don't own or manage. That's just my one watch out. It sort of cuts down, you could argue, on one step of having to ship the gear and then have it shipped back, but you do lose control. And also, what I also tend to have shipped is you know, like a lavalier mic, as well as some lights, and sometimes you can even do a 2 iPad shoot, depends what you're trying to go for. So there's a lot of ways to do this, and I think there's no one right way, and I'd love to hear from all of you here what else you guys are doing. So yeah, so this just goes to prep. This is one of the customers who we worked with. They had a pretty cool backdrop there. There's this whole ladder and bookshelf, and it was really cool and made for a really nice visual backdrop. But what you can actually see from above, this was the skylight example. So they had a skylight above, which is something we had to work around, but it's all part of the fun. So I would say prep. That's going to be your best friend for all of you, for all of us. But however, even the best laid prep, you cannot prep for, right? So this is a shoot here, and you can see in the top right, that's my son, my 8-year-old son, sort of photobombed our shoot. So you really, you got to just roll with it, right? I would just say these things will happen. It actually ended up adding some levity to the shoot, and it sort of humanized it all. So just like, you know, prep as much as you can, but just be prepared. Things can and will happen. And I think it's just part of what we're all going through. So I think it's, don't feel shy, don't feel bashful about it, do your best, and you're going to do great. Just be prepared and be flexible on both sides. And so, yeah, and another story was, I was shooting one of my awesome customers who's in the online jewelry space, and he was located in San Diego. He was recording from his home. My video crew in southern Florida, and I actually was planning to have been at home to sort of facilitate on my side, but actually had to jump in the car to pick up my younger son from his nature camp. Yes, it was Drumlin Farm. That was a good call, Glenda. So yes, it was Drumlin Farms. I had to go pick him up there, but it was actually okay because was able to still give feedback. I was not looking, it was audio at that point, but it actually, it's just something that happened, right? This had been scheduled for a while and things come up, and but all that was sort of, it was not visible to the customer. He was so flexible, and the shoot went on, and it ended up being great. So I was just gonna say, like, these things will happen. Like, we have to be prepared. And we don't have the sterile environment of that, you know, great studio or that office or that conference room booked at the conference hotel. So I think it's just be part of that. And lastly, I was going to say, we're talking about humanizing this, right? This is a different shoot than you would see in a conference room, right? With that sort of, you know, taupe background or whatever it is, that like wood paneling. Like, you're not gonna have, this isn't our customer in his home. Like, he was an IT pro, and he's got a bunch of gear behind him, because that's what happens. And he's got a picture of his family there. And I think that's okay too. And in fact, we enjoyed that. And actually it was part of making this authentic, because there's no hiding. Everyone knows you're not at home. You're at home, and your customer's at home, and you're not at work, or you're not at a conference. So I think there's nothing to be shy there. And I would just say, embrace that and go for it if you have a chance. And I'm just going to wrap up with a couple takeaways, right? So as I was saying, right, everyone's working at home. There's no need to hide this. Be open to it, and work around the things that you can work around, and the rest embrace and be excited about it and go for it. Secondly, right, modern storytelling matters more than ever, right? Our customer is the hero. Make them the hero. Don't make it a puff piece. Really make it around use cases that your prospects care about. If your customer is looking great, if it's about them, they're the story. If your product and solution is the supporting character there, then you're going to be great. Whether that's written, whether that's video, you're going to be golden. Your customer's going to be thrilled. The organization's going to be happy. It's going to be a win all around. So just remember that modern storytelling approach, which we all use. Right, make sure your customer finds value in it, that their team's gonna maybe want to use the story or put it on their social or have it build your customer's brand. So make sure it's the things they want to focus on. It's your team in there, and make sure that the questions that you drive for that interview guide that drives it, you vet it with them, you run it through them, and make sure that their team and them feel comfortable, happy, and if they want to add things in, then add those in, because it's going to make the story all the richer, and you're going to get it approved way faster. Right. So, and the second to last one is that if you make it modern, if you make it about them, if you make the focus right, you're going to have an easier glide path with that long set of approvals, because it's going to be a story that they're thrilled about. And there's tons of reasons to do that. And lastly, right, you're going to have to make noise internally about these stories, right? Get on your sales team's calls, get a slide thrown in there, figure out how to blast their email list, right? Internally, make the noise. You want these stories to be out there. Again, don't just drop it on sales enablement or just say it's posted on the web and then you're done and move on. So The beauty behind that is A, your content will live in lots of places, and B, you'll start getting that holy grail of that inbound funnel to you of sales folks and CSMs and BDRs, SDRs, whoever sort of inbound coming to you, say, hey, I've got this customer who's amazing because, right? Like that's when you know things are in a good spot where you're getting people coming to you. That won't be enough to rely on that, but it's nice to have one of those. It's really each one cherry on top. So I'm going to take a pause there and we can grab questions that came in. Otherwise, thank you guys so much, and I'd love to hand it over to Genie.
All right, Genie, it's all on you, and we'll do questions at the end.
Thanks, Meredith. Thanks for teaching all of us, Evan. So much to learn from this community. So I think Meredith did a nice job with my background. I've been doing this customer marketing segment of discipline of marketing for a long time, probably 2005-ish. And so I've got some insights to share. Certainly a lot has changed since March, but certainly a lot to learn. And I've really appreciated the conference in the past few days to learn from all of you. I think the one thing I'll share, talking about authentic and being authentic, and how much more authentic I think everyone seems to be in the midst of the pandemic. In my personal life, I'm a passionate advocate for transgender youth. My daughter is transgender. And so I bring that level of empathy and personal, authentic interviewing style to pretty much everything I do in customer marketing with my customers. And that's made a real difference, I think, when we bring that barrier down in our own ways, it translates into that relationship. So some trends that I'm seeing are that customers are really craving that professional visibility that's been absent during the pandemic. There's more willingness to engage. Travel bans have really opened up calendars. Customers are having much less face time with their leadership, and so they're craving the ability to promote themselves and their teams more than ever. And quite honestly, another thing I'm seeing is that thought leaders, these experts in their field, are worried about the economy and possibly needing their next gig. And so that visibility and that being front and center in the marketplace as thought leaders is really helping shore up and help them prepare if that happens for them or with them. Again, the economic pressures are really amplifying the customer need, our need for customers to stay with us, that renewal opportunity, and also for companies to keep their employees. We're seeing decreased budgets, increased churn, at least in our segment. Our sales teams are really struggling to swim upstream. And I'm also seeing that IT leaders, they have this real technical aptitude, but they don't know how to articulate their own success, promote themselves and their teams inside their own companies. And we have an opportunity, which I'll talk about in a minute, to become almost their marketing arm, to help them promote their success and that of their team as a way to add additional value and shore up that renewal in a different and unique non-sales way. Recruiting is continuing, and the demand to compete for top IT talent and keeping that talent is really, really brutal. Not long ago, I was on the phone with the VP of engineering at Capital One, who at the time said that he had 35 open developer positions at that moment. The ability to fill those positions quickly, get them onboarded quickly is really, really critical. And with that, keeping your employees being productive and satisfied and happy in their jobs is more important than ever. I think we're seeing in the pandemic organizations being really flexible and open about the challenges that employees have, working from home, having families, etc. I'm finding a huge opportunity to partner with our customers' PR teams, and how that's really opening doors to the C-suite and senior executives that our sales teams cannot get to or have not been able to get to. We just recently had a media opportunity with the CIO of a major Fortune 500 company, who our sales team has not been able to break into. Now that has led to an opportunity for the Salesforce, our sales team, to take that relationship forward. And our partnership with PR at that company really supported that overall relationship with the customer. Those PR teams really want something else to talk about other than the pandemic. And so we can help offer them new opportunities to talk about how IT is transforming their business. And the media isn't traveling either. And so they're craving interviews with real IT thought leaders. And we're able to bring those media opportunities and those media relationships to those PR teams. I will say, as a footnote, we're seeing, or our team is seeing, that the travel and hospitality industries have really shut down in terms of willingness to engage and willingness to reach out, to participate in media opportunities. But that seems to be the exception. Even federal, I have seen a lot more interest and willingness to engage. So I think across CloudBees, and I bet in your organizations too, that our internal requests for unvarnished customer insight is more important than ever. Marketing and sales want more, and they want it faster. And I also see my colleagues having a willingness to experiment and test new formats and approaches more so than ever before. I think people are saying, you know what, this pandemic has changed things up for all of us. Let's use this opportunity to try some new things. Evan said this earlier, authenticity really reigns right now. Professional relationships are much more personal, and I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, who talks about vulnerability. It's a true superpower, and that candor really builds trust with our customers and our advocates and our colleagues as well. So, with that authenticity, I think that we can sacrifice some quality and polish for speed and authenticity. We're still doing the traditional case study that many of us also do, but we're taking that and morphing it in some cases to more of a contributed piece in first person. So, typically our case studies are third person, and we're moving to having a mix of first person, which makes it a little more personal, and there's ownership for that customer in the story that they're telling. There's also a significant cost difference in going that way. So, and time and the speed. So for example, a branded long case study in my world is typically about $2,000, give or take. And they can take forever to get approved. I don't know if you're still seeing this kind of lead time, but I certainly am. But on this more personal approach, they're going through much faster. On average, 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, and the cost is significantly less. So predictions, I'm going to pull out my little magic wand here. I keep this on my desk because sometimes I want things to go away. Some things I want to hope for things. But I do have a prediction, and we'll see. All of you can help see if this is accurate, or if it turns out to be accurate. I think the scale is going to balance out. This industry has been very, very focused on telling customer stories externally, and those are critical. That's not going to go away. But what I think might balance out is telling stories internally for and with the customer. And with that, you gain some speed, you gain some authenticity, and but you might have to sacrifice some things a little bit. So I think the customer case study of the future is going to help customers promote their success inside their own company. What this will do is add significant value to the customer. They'll be able to document those results internally, celebrate their team, expand their offering across their company. It's going to help them protect their own budget that is probably under fire, and also build internal influence and credibility, and also expanding their own skill set. As I mentioned earlier, IT folks and leaders, they're technical in many cases, and they don't necessarily have a lot of experience doing speaking opportunities or talking to the media or even presentation skills. And we really can bring that and help them advance those skills. On our side, on our own company side, it's strengthening the partnership in a unique non-sales way, supporting the renewal, supporting land and expand opportunities across the customer environment. It's deepening our learning. That authenticity is helping us get to a deeper level of understanding and learning from the customer. And I do believe, and we're seeing this, is it creates a pathway to advocacy. When you build that more of that trust, it creates a natural pathway to advocacy. So I see this as a partnership with customer success, selecting a small handful of high value accounts, 6 to 9 months from renewal, and choosing perhaps those that are typically unwilling or unable to advocate publicly. Maybe that looks like an external third party business value assessment, could be done in combination with customer success. And again, also to Evan's point about multi-format content development, I think this will be critical. What will be different is the questions that we ask. They're going to be quite different than the questions that we would ask for a typical external case study, because we're going to be focusing in this format on what the value is that they're bringing to their own organization. And then perhaps wrapping that with consulting or training about how to promote that success within their own company. So here's a different one example. We have just done a video with Salesforce, with that IT team, with the idea of not only creating an external story, but also helping this DevOps team take their solution that they've developed across multiple development teams within Salesforce. So one of the big complaints that developers have is when they don't have a strong CI/CD process in place, is that they end up working late nights and working weekends. And guess what? They don't want to do that. So the message that they want to hear is, I want to develop cool software. I want to get it into production as fast as possible. And I want to hang out with my family at night and on the weekends. I don't want to work. So the message is different. And therefore the questions that we ask is different. So this is an example from Slap 5. We developed the video and then we've carved it up. And we've carved it up in ways that we can use externally and ways that we can use it internally to support the Salesforce DevOps team. So in summary, the customer story of the future really gives our champions, our buyers, and our users the tools and skills necessary to sell themselves. And just by default, we win. And we gain, we win simply by association with their success.
All right. Well, thank you, Evan and Jeannie. That was a lot of great content. I want to make sure that we get some questions in here as well. And I've seen a lot of questions come in. And Evan, I'm actually going to throw one to you because I saw a lot of questions around the service that you used for that remote video. Specifically, what service was it? What type of gear? What type of microphone? Can you elaborate a little bit on how you made that go so smoothly?
Yeah, so I would suggest using a remote video crew that does this regularly, right? That's sort of a part of that's their expertise, right? Because I've not seen a lot of sort of those standard, you know, on-site video crews sort of make the shift. It's sort of a different skill set, likely, and I think it comes down to knowing the right environment. So I mean, it can be elaborate. You can have, like I said, you can either have like one, we use like an iPad Pro 2020, which has pretty, I think 4K quality. So you can even have sort of one shot, but if you want to really get elaborate, right, just like you do in a real shoot, you can have a two camera shoot, so you can mix between the two angles. But remember, the more gear you send, the more gear your customer has to set up because you're not going to be there or your video crew is not going to be there. So I would just say, put yourself in their shoes. You want to be as light on the gear as you can, but also not too light that you don't get the content that you're looking for.
Awesome, thank you. And Jeannie, you know, we had a lot of questions come in as you were talking about getting the client's PR teams was kind of that key to some success there. Could you delve a little bit deeper? How did that come about? Who made the ask, and kind of how did you lead that through to success?
Sure. So what I'm finding is that as I'm engaging with our customers, I'm asking if they're open to PR opportunities. If they say yes, the Cloudbees PR team is seeking those out, bringing those to me, and I'm taking them directly to the customer. And most often that's where the introduction has come. So our client, you know, our actual champion within the account introduces us to their PR, and that's where the relationship continues to get built. I serve as that conduit all the time. And then once an opportunity has solidified with a reporter, it's then I make sure that our PR team and their PR team are executing together. So it becomes a real partnership. You can almost look at it like a triangle. I find that, you know, in my background, I have a lot of PR background early in my career. So I can talk in their language. And the one thing I say to almost every customer PR person that I talk to is, I will protect your brand as if it were my own. And that really resonates for them. I think when PR people work with vendor marketing folks, they get nervous. Like, is this they gonna throw my brand into the wild here? And so as you build that trust, it goes a long way. And guess what? The next time there's an opportunity for them, that approval goes much faster and much more smoothly.
All right, thanks, Jeannie. Keep those questions coming in on the chat. We'll keep running through these. And I'm not sure which one of you wants to jump in first here, but we had a question come in. What are your thoughts around incorporating buyer's advice or guidance in case studies, making them less of a history lesson versus here's what you should know?
You could grab that, Genie.
That's a really great idea. I don't think I've thought of that.
Oh, it's a good idea.
It's a really good idea.
Yes, you have, Jeannie. Jeannie, we're talking about the advice portion.
What's that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we're talking about including advice, not just like what's happened with Salesforce and some of these other clients. You know how they've been sharing advice in addition?
Yeah. I think that, you know, in speaking opportunities or presentations, we always, you know, include a slide, like what advice would you give to someone like you? I think we're asking that question in video interviews as well. It's a good one. And I've also seen the opportunity to use those answers in blog content. You know, I think the blog in particular is a really good place for that.
I was gonna say we do it as well in video. Sometimes a little harder in written format, but I don't see why not. So I should try to double down on that. It's a great point.
Yeah, and one question that I always found was really helpful when I was doing, whether it was written case study interviews or video case study interviews, is always asking what was happening at your organization before you came to our solution. And it kind of sets the stage, right? And it allows you to crop, whether you're writing it or, you know, editing on video, it allows you to crop their story down into what specific challenge were they facing before, you know, they implemented your solution. And then that segues nicely into how your solution is helping them. So I think that question asks it in a nice way as well. So that's always a good approach.
Yeah, and it keeps it about them, right? You know, yes, we have our own goals that, you know, reasons that we think our customers buy from us. But it's really interesting when we let the customer take us on this journey. So I often get asked, where's your, you know, Genie, do you have a list of questions that you ask when you do an interview? And I say, yeah, I have a framework, but no, I'm not going to give you a list because I want to hear your story. Not the one I think I want to tell.
And I think it also elevates it from just sort of feature function. It definitely up levels it more around thought leadership that's more broadly applicable.
All right. So next question here, Evan, you talked a little bit about kind of putting your content marketing hat on when you're thinking about this customer marketing content. So do you have any good, bad collaboration stories with the content marketing team, some pitfalls, things for people to watch out on, or how to succeed?
Sure. So the surest way to succeed is to, so I'm actually part of my content team's calls. Like they have a weekly call, and I'll be part of those calls to know what campaigns are either now or even better in the planning for Q4, even Q1, depends on how far your teams plan out. So if you know what campaigns are in the planning, you can actually try to, Genie was talking about customizing those interview questions, which I know I always do, Genie always does. You can actually embed questions that will ideally get you that snippet that speaks to that. So we run a sort of a holiday task force, almost like a Black Friday assurance program for our customers. And if you think, well, okay, we know we have this big campaign coming up, let me see how I can embed that question into the interview. And then you're going to up your chances of getting your team that content exactly almost tailor-made for what they're looking for, and they can extract it out and use it that way. So that's one that I've used, and I hope to continue to use.
All right. Let's see. So we had a question come in. We've had several customers raise their hand for opportunities, whether it's speaking, award nominations, case studies, what have you, that have moved to new organizations and new roles. Does this mean we need to do a better job filtering out some of our customers so we don't end up with a lot of short shelf life customer content?
Gosh, I mean, who raised the hand? Who has that not happened to at one point? Right? Like, it's just you do this enough, and yeah, you might draw the short straw there. I think that's a great point. It would be hard for me to say how to fully avoid that. You can't ask someone, "Hey, are you on the job hunt?" Right? I mean, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Maybe some of you could, but short of that, I wouldn't know how to avoid it personally. I don't know if you have any, you have your magic wand, Genie. What would you say?
Oh, you're so right. I had we all have those horror stories, right? I had one recently that was just gorgeous. We all have that feeling, right? And the senior VP literally left the account a week, probably a couple days before it was about to be approved, and it died on the vine. And so what we did is we made it anonymous. So, boy, did that hurt, right? It hurt bad. But it's also an opportunity to stay in touch with that person. So, I think I've got a great person who is formerly with HSBC, and she's at an account now that's not a customer, but we're still actually feeding her opportunities for speaking opportunities and media, because she's a powerhouse woman in IT. And so we keep that connection with her. Does it short life the content? Maybe. We've continued to make those pieces anonymous and put former, before their title.
Or you could use it also for internal, for a sales kickoff. May not have as much punch, but yeah, you'd like to get a little bit of value out of that internally if you can. Say sales enablement.
And if I could just add, one thing that's worked well with that, with the clients I work with, when one of their customers leaves, we'll reach out to that customer as they've moving on to the new role, and we'll ask them, say, you gave us some great stories. I mean, can we use this just by saying former, or since it's not, since these stories aren't about the product, they're about their challenge and the success they've had, can we, can we attribute it to your new company? And they'll usually say yes to one of those. More often than not, they'll say, yeah, the former. It's fine if you just say, I'm former chief information officer at such and such, and it's still a really powerful story.
Yeah, I think there's some risk in that, and some brands I think would. We had a case study with Capital One when the VP, that particular vice president left. They asked for it to be taken down, so we'll rebuild a new one. But I do think asking the question, there's nothing wrong with asking the question. Right. But when someone leaves a company, I believe that company, that IP belongs to that. To that company, not to the person.
Yeah, and I often found that the companies were okay with keeping it, with some attribution of former. I actually did one video shoot back when it was still okay to be on site with people. We were in Delft in the Netherlands, and the guy had given his notice partway through us planning this trip. And so the company said, it's okay for him to still be in the video. He knows the product the best. We're just going to leave his title as former because it was going to come out a week after he left the company. We shot a week before he left. So it was just a crazy thing.
That's a great example of partnership, Meredith, that you really had that relationship. Awesome. And I bet that's a key part of why you were able to do that.
Yeah. And, to your point earlier, Jeannie, it's also really helpful to get in the door at other new companies that way. We actually did a whole campaign with former kind of advocates when they had left and gone somewhere else 2 months after we kind of had a Salesforce flag pop up, and we would send them a welcome to your new company gift. Nice. And just re-engage that conversation and see if they could bring us in the door. And, we got some great new accounts that way.
It's really smart.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
That's a really good idea.
You're welcome to steal it.
Attribution.
All right, guys. I think we're coming up on time here, but I do want to ask one last question to Evan and Jeannie. We talked a lot about kind of the future of the customer story, but is there one thing that you guys are not including in your 2021 plans that you have included in the past? Is there something you're letting go of and putting in the past? So Jeannie, I'm going to throw it to you first.
That's a tough one. I think I'm going to lean on something that I think there was a whole session on earlier in the week, which is around measurement. That's really going to be my focus in 2021, other than building out an internally focused program for customers, but is using measurement, using data to really make those decisions of what stays and what needs to be dialed back or eliminated. I'm not sure what that will be, but I think it needs to be, based on data. I think somebody may have asked about video and what might change. And I hope that at some point we'll be able to come back to those in-person video shoots. Let's hope.
Great. And Evan, how about you? What are you getting rid of?
Well, hard to predict, but my preference would be to sort of let go of the anonymous stories. I think they are not, well, let's be frank, right? They don't hold as much weight or clout as a named one does. And I would tend to believe prospects and customers don't value them as much. It's hard to identify with anonymous mid-size manufacturer in the Midwest, right? It's hard to wrap your head around that, and it speaks to maybe you don't have the relationship, maybe the product's not quite there yet. You couldn't get anyone to talk about it. So I don't want to predict fully walking away, but I would like to minimize the use of those and really concentrate on those stories that we can tell with authenticity, and just really focus on the ones we can tell that bring that mutual value there.
All right, cool. Well, thank you guys. You made leading this session really easy for me. So Evan, Genie, you guys are rock stars. Thanks so much.